Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakwah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and bishops of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. Salutations to the beloved prophets and teachers. Continue to exhort the sheep. And Shemati Shalom to the hopeful elect. Continue to listen and put on righteousness. The title of this epistle is going to be centered around Leviticus chapter 23. As we approach the new year and the Passover, which is aligned by the lunar moon. We keep our feast days and our Sabbaths according to the lunar cycle, because that is the identifying marker that the Most High Yahweh has established from the very beginning to align our feast days down here on earth. We do not follow an intercalendar calendar or anything like that, but we use the moon itself to identify our Sabbaths and our feast days. That's all substantiated within the context of Genesis chapter 1 to verse 31 and Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 and 2, which outlines the blueprint of the Lord's Sabbath. 6 days you work, but the seventh day you rest. 6 days you work, but the seventh day you rest. There's no breaking in between that. That has always been the cycle. And once you are on that cycle in accordance to following the lunar Sabbath, you are closer to following the appointed times and keeping the Sabbaths according to the word of Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. Do the due diligence of looking up whether or not the biblical Hebrew Israelites kept a lunar Sabbath and why they kept it. This was because it was an agricultural society and they had to keep within the agriculture that they were growing at that time according to the said seasons. So we're going to jump into Leviticus chapter 23, and I'll start right at verse 2. This is Moses speaking to the children of Israel, and it's important to know that these law, statutes, and commands were given unto the children of Israel, so that way we can keep the ordinances and follow our power, Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, to be grafted back into that covenant. So, verse 2, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These, and even these are my feasts. Now, this chapter in Leviticus chapter 23 is opening up, talking about the feasts of Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. And he's saying that these feasts are very holy convocations. Even the Sabbaths are considered holy, right? It says 6 days 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings. So right here in this particular verse, he's saying that the feasts are to be mirrored after your weekly Sabbaths, your moeds, and it is all substantiated by looking up at the lunar cycle and making sure that you're keeping, time. It's not worshiping the moon, but you're using the observances of the planetary stars and all these things that he has put into the atmosphere for us to be observant of, because in biblical times, there wasn't a manufacturing of calendars and all these other things like there is today. Everything has been watered down through generations of captivities to dislodge our feast days and our moeds and our appointed times, which is why there's probably a lot of controversy surrounding the Sabbath day being Friday and Saturday, as where most of those who are somewhat biblically inclined uphold. But that is false. That is a false doctrine. That is that's not the way that the Most High Yahweh has commanded us to observe these feast days in these appointed times. We in fact are observing the biblical New Year on March the 18th, which will bring in the new year, which ultimately aligns our feast days and our Sabbaths. That's the beginning of the month, and that's the beginning of our Sabbaths, the first day of the month. And the Passover we're observing is on April the 1st, which will be a full moon. It's important to understand these things because it goes through the scriptures of marking our days, not by what the months that they're called by in this current time, but it's numbered. So we have to be able to identify when the 14th day of the month is, and so on and so forth, because how else you're going to be able to identify what that number of the month is if you're not coinciding with something other than a man-made calendar, but observing, the actual moon. So 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath to Yahweh in all your dwellings. These are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. These are an appointed time. These are appointed times to show up in, right? So those that are probably observing their Sabbaths on Friday and Saturday, right? Friday and Saturday. And if you are holding your Passover a day or two before that, which is a holy convocation, a Saturday, and you were not supposed to break the cycle of 6 day works and 1 day rest, how can you explain that? How can you explain having your Sabbath on any other day and then working 1 or 2 days and then having your Sabbath on Friday and Saturday? Nowhere in scripture does it teach that, but it teaches that 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you rest. But on the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover, is Yahweh's Passover. So how do you know what day of the month is, right? So if the 14th day of that month is a Passover, it's a Sabbath, and 6 days you work, on the 7th day you rest, 7 days before that, it would be day 8, a Sabbath, and 8 days before that, it would be the new month of a new moon in which you're supposed to bring up your offerings. And Numbers 10:10, it says to blow the shofar in your solemn feast and on your Sabbaths. So this is a Sabbath. So we're talking about the feast days, but we're talking about Sabbaths aligning with the feast days and aligning what days that we are supposed to observe within a calendar month. Finishing on. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yahweh. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So the evening of the 14th going into the 15th, which would be a full moon, and that time frame is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and this is when you are to partake in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It also goes to say that no leaven should be found in all your houses, to remove them outside. This is also a spiritual meaning that we are to remove the leaven from within us and put in sound doctrine and understanding, so that way we may receive the blood of Hamashiach Yahushai when those angels pass over us. This is symbolic to receiving that covering in that time. We're in Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 7, it says, in the first day ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. So on the 14th of Eve into the 15th, which would be a full moon, that's considered a holy convocation, wherein you do no servile work. It's a day of rest, a day of convocation to gather with those who are like-minded, who are in the same doctrine, the same understanding as you are, right? The first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein, no buying and selling. Verse 8, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh 7 days. In the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. So within that 7 day time span, from the 14th at eve into the 15th, which would be a full moon, 7 days you are to partake in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Every day you're supposed to have unleavened bread as a reminder of keeping leaven and separating yourself from iniquities and sin. That leaven represents anything that's unwanted within this holy temple that we're trying to keep clean, and we are going to keep clean, right? On the Passover, we are to partake and eat of the Passover lamb, and eat the bitter herbs as a reminder that we are partaking and consuming in Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, as that sacrifice, that lamb, to always be mindful that we are partaking in this as we're commanded to. He says we're supposed to remember this particular feast from generation to generation. We're supposed to be alert and very mindful of this particular one, and have this appointed feast in its proper season on the correct times, because they align for a specific reason, a very prophetic reason. So this is why this needs to be explained and brought out, right? Again, the biblical Hebrew Israelites have always observed a lunar solar Sabbath, and identifying keeping the high feast days and the Sabbaths according to the appearance of the moon, and celebrating high feast days on a full moon, which would be the 15th day of that month. And there's 6 days you work, the 7th day you rest. There's no in between that time. There's no work, have a feast day, work, Sabbath. That's breaking understanding. It's confusion. It's straight babble. So verse 8 of Leviticus chapter 23, it says, but ye shall have an offering made by fire unto Yahweh 7 days. Is the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. We are not under the law portion of animal sacrifice. Our sacrifices now entail us being observant of keeping the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our abilities. Practicing these things are a good sacrifice, is a burnt sacrifice, because we're separating the carnal desires of this world and putting on the will that he wants us to have, is to reverence him and take hold of his sovereignty, right? So this is a burnt sacrifice. Keeping commandments is enough. That's substantiated in the Apocrypha. Maybe I can find it and put it down in the description box. Verse 9, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel. These commands, these feast days, these law observances was always given to the children of Israel to keep. And then speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when you be come into the land which I give unto you, you shall reap the harvest thereof. Then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priests. And ye shall wave the sheaf offering to Yahweh to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath. And the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day, when ye have waved the sheaf of the lamb without blemish of the first year, for a burnt offering unto Yahweh. Again, we're not underneath that animal sacrifice, but we are to observe keeping the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our abilities, to receive grace, having that hope to receive grace, that we are observing to the best of our abilities what is substantiated within the scriptures as a sacrifice unto the Most High Yahweh. And we're not under the law. Once you practice keeping the observances and abiding with them, then you're no longer underneath the judgments of the law, but you are giving grace to abound, showing your good works and your faith that you believe in what was offered unto us as salvation. Salakia. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 13. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 tenth deals of fine flour mixed with oil, and an offering made by fire unto Yahweh for a sweet savor. And a drink offering therefore shall be of wine, and a fourth part of a hin. We have our meat offering, which is Yahweh Shai, and the drink offering, his blood, the blood atonement, is what he came and taught, the wisdom in keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, and bringing back the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This was the message, and this is the wine that we drink, and this is the meat that we partake of, right? Leviticus chapter 23 and 14. And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your power. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. So in this context here, it says that this statute was a generational command for us to observe and keep, right? This was substantiated aforetime And this has been the covenant that we were supposed to uphold. I'm going to go into Exodus chapter 12. We're talking about the Passover, the beginning of the Passover, the new year, and keeping it in its appointed time. And it's through the observance of the moon, the lunar Sabbath. Exodus chapter 12, starting at verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So the Most High is clearly identifying that the first day of the month of Bib is the beginning of the year. Now, if this is the beginning of the year, where throughout Scripture would it ever say that after the beginning of the year, you can now set up a Sabbath and go from there and to mark your days in Moeds? It doesn't. It clearly says this is the beginning line. This is where you start all things. This is through the mouth of Yahweh or Yahweh Shai, right? So this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you, right? Speak unto the congregation of Yasharallah or Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. So at this particular time, the children of Israel were to go and take for themselves a lamb without blemish, a male of a year old, right? To be offered up as a first fruit unto Yahweh or Yahweh Shai. This is showcasing that we are to also offer up the first fruits of our loins, the first fruits of our crop, the first fruits of everything. This is, the Most High gets the best of everything. Verse 4, And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Now, because you may have more than enough lamb at this particular time in observing the Passover, the neighbor that is supposed to partake within the Passover with you are those that are keeping the law, statutes, and commandments as well. This does not say go to a random stranger and now they can partake of the Passover, but no, this is an observance for the children of Israel to be watchful, so that way that our sins are covered and we do not receive of those judgments because we're covered under the blood. This has been substantiated throughout the Scriptures, and this is the word of the Most High Yahweh. Verse 4, And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Yasharallah shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it upon the two posts and on the upper posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. This is underneath of the animal sacrificial covenant. We are not underneath this animal sacrificial covenant because Yahweh Shai, our chief redeemer, made himself, or he was sent into the earth to be a divine a divine sacrificial lamb for the remissions of the children of Israel and their sins to be grafted back in. So we're not splashing blood all over our doorposts and our houses, but we are spiritually being covered by Hamashiach Yahweh Shai by receiving him into our spirit being, if that was our divine lot to receive him and to partake and eat of that lamb and drink of that wine and eat of that bread. We are spiritually receiving these things and putting on the image of Hamashiach to receive that cover. Verse 8, And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with all bitter herbs shall they eat it. They shall not eat it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head and his legs, and with the puritance thereof. And ye shall not let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth until morning ye shall burn with fire. So this is not a feast of a gathering. What I mean. This is not a party. This is not a party by any means. This is not a social event to get to know each other. No, but this is a very important gathering, a holy convocation, and remembering what was particularly done for the remissions of our sins, in partaking and eating the lamb and drinking of the blood and the bread and observance and all those things spiritually. And next verse, it says, and thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. It's very important to observe the Passover in its appointed time, because it very clearly shows in this particular verse where you might want to make flee and haste in this particular feast. So if your feast is dislodged and you're not celebrating your feast in the proper appointed season when the king tells you to appear, but you go and establish your own understanding and celebrate these feasts in your own time, you could very well be missing that appointed time when you need to be dressed, girded, and eat it in haste, right? For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yahweh. So, yes, this has happened in ancient times, and it has periodically happened to redeem the children of Israel every time they got themselves into captivity. And this will happen again, as we can see all the prophetic things that are said there, written in therein, to happen, and to be very mindful and watchful and have these seasons in their appointed times. Verse 13, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, and I will smite the land of Egypt, just like he did when in the days of Noah, when he gave Noah a command to go and prophesy and give people warning and tell them to come back and separate yourselves from the ways of the world. And the Most High gave him clear instructions, and then it was the Most High that shut Noah in. Noah didn't go and build himself a bunker. He didn't go and do anything outside of the command of the Most High Yahweh, but he indeed found grace in the eyes of Yahweh, or Yahweh Shai, because he was found righteous in that generation, and him and his family and everything that he took into that ark received life and safety and passage to go through that flood. And we do have floods being poured out now. It's starting to rain. So I pray that this was edifying. And I pray that those of you out there on the other end can receive this and do some due diligence to align yourself more according to the will of the Most High Yahweh, or Yahweh Shai, and observing everything that is said therein, and separate yourself from all the teachings and everything that has been made to be a stumbling block out there, because you have to have both to be able to sift people out. You have to have those that are teaching sound doctrine, truth, and then you have to have those that are teaching lies and falsities. You have to have both, because depending whether or not you hear the voice of Yahweh, or Yahweh Shai, coming through the prophets and the teachers and being set up, ultimately, if it was meant for you to receive this, you will be put in a category of put into a store barn, not considered a tare, but a wheat. You know, there's a sifting stage, a sifting process for you to receive sound doctrine and observance, and do your own due diligence to build yourself up to get these understandings. And I pray this was edifying. Until the next time, shalom.